Hey folks, how are you? I'm in the den today because the sun's down in the sunroom. So today I was going to talk about, I've just been leaning into this idea of my patterns, my psychological patterns, my patterns of thought and behavior and action. And yesterday I talked a little bit about kind of family patterning, and our families are where we receive the earliest imprinting experiences of our life. So naturally, we develop a whole bunch of patterns in relationship to our parents, our siblings. Those things become sort of like our personality as a young person. And then later on in life, when we go, I wonder if that way of thinking is helpful to us or if it's really what I believe, then it becomes a matter of kind of reassessing and deciding, well, is that really the conviction that I want to hold? Or is this just something that I happen to believe because I've always believed it, So I've just been leaning into that more and more, not just on the family level, but on the level of all conditioning. There's cultural conditioning, there's gender conditioning, there's all these ways in which I'm just noticing my own patterns. I'm tempted to call it my own shit, but it's not always shit. It's just the way I do things when I'm not conscious about it. And I think the big thing that I'm finding now in this new kind of phase and what I've started with 2021 with a real commitment to leaning into is making everything conscious. It doesn't mean I won't hold beliefs or won't have conditioning. It just means that I'll choose my own conditioning. I'm gonna have some agency over what my beliefs are because I decide to. I can decide not to, or I can decide to, and I'm deciding to. That's part of what these posts are all about, and letting these thoughts that are coming through me get out. And I was reading a book today, listening to it on Audible. Actually, it's by Monica Main, and she wrote a book on the missing chapters of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And it's basically a crazy story. This random dude walked up to her in a hotel bar and handed her two chapters to ended up sending her two chapters to Napoleon Hill's book. She went through a whole research period, decided she thought these were pretty legitimate, and has done her own book. And one of the things she said was it would just kind of flash for me. She said, if you don't know what your burning desire is, it's probably because you've taken on a lot of other people's thoughts and allowed those thoughts to determine what you think and determine what you want. And I was like, wow. In some ways that's always been obvious that that's what conditioning is, but on another level, it kind of hit me in a new way. I was like, okay, so in all these ways in which, throughout my life and up into including the present moment, in which I struggle to articulate my truest vision of my life, all those things that get in the way when I sit down to do that, I notice I have this massive resistance to sitting down and just considering my vision of life. What would I like my life to look like? I'm not talking about coming up with a 20-year plan or a 5-year plan, although I think that that's helpful. But just taking a timeline, a year, 5 years, and saying this is what I want my life to look like. I have real trouble doing that. I sit down to try to do that, and I'll walk to the piano. I'll start noodling around. I'll do anything to not have to face that not knowing. And what this statement in this book made really clear to me is that's because there's all this stuff in the way of my seeing that's not mine. And on some level, I've taken it on. It's my conditioning now. And so I don't want to let it go. I had this funny image come to me this morning. It's kind of like when we're trying to break through our conditioning, at some point in our development, we go from being identified with our physical body and thinking like physical death is what death represents to us. We transcend the physical body in a way, and our emotional and psychological identity becomes our primary identity. And you can see this because problems like mental problems or psychological issues, very quickly, in order to suppress them, the body does something to hold on to them. They'll lodge in an organ. They'll lodge in our gut or our shoulders or our neck or our lungs. The body is like the soldier that will lie on a grenade to save the general. And it's like That's so hilarious because in a lot of ways, just in order to not have to let go of our psychological ego, this identity that we feel is who we are on the deepest level, which is nothing but a set of psychological constructs and thoughts that we've maybe chosen to believe, maybe not. In order to defend that, we will actually compromise our physical health. We will let ourselves get sick. We will make our actual human form more likely to die in defense of this identity that is just a pattern of thought. And it's kind of unbelievable when when you realize that, when you realize how much the body is doing to defend the mind, to defend the ego from having to reckon with its own impermanence or its own non-existence. Ultimately, ultimately the ego is just a compendium of those thoughts. And so that's a very difficult thing to let go of. And the body kind of takes it on the chin all the time throughout the day. And one of the things that's led me to, in terms of approaching this work, is that it has to be holistic. I've noticed sometimes when I have a big shift psychologically, the next day something will hurt in my body. Like I'll wake up with lower back pain, or the other way around. I'll let go of something in my body, something physical will release, and all of a sudden the next day I'll have a big or even same day I'll have a wash of emotion. I'll be in a real emotional state, and it doesn't really have any justification. Nothing has happened. There's no reason for it other than something was in my body and it dislodged, and now it's flowing through my system, and I have to deal with the emotions or the thoughts that come with it because I was holding on to something that I didn't want to see before. So that's kind of where I'm landing with all this, is that there's something about this process that has to be holistic if we actually want it to be effective, because otherwise it's easy to just kind of take trauma and push it around in our system. Let some come up and push the rest down, or you don't want to hold it over here. Okay, let's move it over here and hold it over here. And as long as we're not looking everywhere, there's going to be these kind of dark spots where that trauma can still lodge. And I think what I'm realizing more and more, and I've known this from Qigong practice for any number of years, but it's just becoming more and more clear as I really lean into transformation, and as I really take seriously this process of truly allowing the moment to be a free fall into whatever's coming through at the time. As I do that, I'm realizing more and more it's all levels. It's all levels, top to bottom, all sides. It's the whole being that's doing this work. And so just being prepared for that, and being willing to be gentle with the whole unit too, because you can push somewhere and then it hurts somewhere else, and just needing to be, have empathy. Ultimately, we're dealing with like a frightened inner child that doesn't want to let go of what makes him feel secure. So knowing that that's what's going on, I think that's also something I'm trying to cultivate throughout this, is a gentleness and a generosity, and it's okay. These beliefs and this patterning is not like evil. I'm not trying to exorcise it and get the demons out. I am kind of, but I'm also holding space for them to be just the imprinting that was most evolutionarily beneficial to a much younger version of me, and that has now outlived its usefulness. So I know this is kind of a rambling post, but it really comes down to this idea of recognizing our patterning and being really diligent about observing it, and rather than just living it, really kind of noticing what's driving us, then having some real caring for that, and then allowing it to come through. So thank you so much for listening, for watching. In so many ways, you right now, whoever's watching this at minute 9 of this video, you are the surface off of which I'm getting a reflection for all of this stuff, and you're providing a conduit for me to let things through me that need to come through and that are helping me evolve and change. So I'm truly grateful. Thank you so much. Love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.